Hey Canucks fans, welcome to Clay's Canucks commentary for Thursday, November the 15th. I'm Clay Emo at Canuck Clay on Twitter, and I'm Clayton Emo on Instagram. I'm a founding member of the GLCBC, the good-looking Canucks Positivity Club. You can tell I just got my hair cut, looking good. And this is my Canucks take, all in one take. Finally, tonight the Canucks wrap up their 6-game road trip. They're playing in Minnesota against the Wild. This trip has not been great. They have 1 win, 4 losses, 2 of those losses being in the shootout. So they have 4 points out of 10 possible points. 4 points in 5 games. So if somehow they manage to get 2 points today, then you could say they're kind of salvaging the road trip. That means they'd come home with basically 2 wins, but 6 out of a possible 12 points. But it's going to be tough. Minnesota's a top 5 team in the league right now. And it sounds like, I'm recording this before it's confirmed, but it sounds like that backup, Richard Bachman will get the start in goal because not only has Jacob Markstrom played 9 straight, he may have gotten hurt or tweaked something at the during the Islanders game on Tuesday. Maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, I'm recording this before the Canucks take the ice for their game day skate. So, but it sounds like Bachman may play. Regardless, if he plays or if he doesn't, well, if he does play, that means the Canucks are going to have to play really good in front of him. He hasn't played a pro game in the NHL for over a year now. You played 5 games 2 seasons ago, but didn't see the net last year. So, if Bachman's in, the Canucks are going to be in tough. Even if Markstrom's in, the Canucks are going to be in tough. Markstrom, this would be his 10th straight game. Obviously since Nielsen's been out with the injured hand, and 6-game road trip. 10 games straight. All signs point to a very tough game for the Canucks, especially as they're fatigued and looking forward to coming home. And like I mentioned in the last game, it's in the last video, it's pretty crazy. Of their first 20 games, 13 of them being on the road. That means it'll even out as the season goes, even though they still have that World Junior Championship that they got to navigate as well. So look for a bunch of clusters of home games, homestands coming up in the next few months for the Vancouver Canucks. So I don't know about any lineup changes. If Brendan Gaunce is going to get in for a change. He's been sitting for a few games. I don't know if Biega is going to get in, but we'll see. We can talk about that tonight when I do my post-game live stream, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, so like I said, recording this before the game day skate, but all indications are that Bachman will at least have a decent chance of starting tonight's game. What I want to talk about today is Alex Edler. He's injured right now, our number 1 defenseman, but we all know that he's a UFA at the end of the season. And there's obviously been a lot of talk as to what he's going to do at the end of the season. And really, it's 2 pieces, right? Will the Canucks trade him, and will he re-sign here as a free agent? Or will the Canucks extend him? And I'll get into this in a second. This was perpetuated by his agent. His name's Mark Stowe, very similar to Mark Stone, but his name is Mark Stowe. And he was on Sportsnet 650, interviewed by Dollywall, Sobolski, and Sokolsky yesterday morning on the starting lineup on Sportsnet. And he basically talked about Alex Edler's desire, that he's progressing well from injury, recovering from injury, and his desire to stay in Vancouver. And that's no surprise. We've all heard that Alex Edler loves it here. His family loves it here. He loves it here for his family, and that he may or may not waive his no-trade clause, his limited no-trade clause. So, I knew I was going to talk about Edler in this video, so I put a poll on Twitter just last night for 12 hours, got 200 votes, and it was very, very telling. And the question was this: what's your guess, what's your prediction for Alex Edler at the end of the season with regards to both his trade, the trade deadline, and his free agency? And I gave 4 options. And the 4 options were that he doesn't get traded and that he resigns here. The second option was that he doesn't get traded and he goes elsewhere on July 1st. The third option was he does get traded and he goes elsewhere on July 1st, whether that's the team he gets traded to or a different team. And the fourth option was he does get traded and he resigns here as a free agent. So kind of confusing when I don't have any graphics for it, but just hear me out. The first 2 are no trade. So the first one is no trade and then re-signs here as a free agent. The second one is no trade and then he goes elsewhere. The third one was gets traded and then signs somewhere else. And the fourth one was gets traded but then comes back here. So I got 200 votes and there's a very, very even distribution. So that means it was a good poll question. Of those 200 votes, it went like this: 29, 20, 26, 25. So 29%, the majority by a bit, or the highest vote getter, 29% says, yeah, your prediction that he doesn't get traded and he resigns here. So that is obviously a win-win for the Canucks, for Alex Edler mostly, and for anyone who's an Alex Edler fan. The second one that got 20% was probably the worst option for Canucks fans. That is that he doesn't get traded and then he re-signs somewhere else. So that would be basically losing him for nothing, i.e. Dan Hamhuis, i.e. Radim Verbata from a couple of years ago. So this would, especially for a rebuilding team, would throw Canucks fans into a tizzy, I think, given that we've seen, tizzy, what a stupid word, but given that, and that wasn't me passing gas, that was me, my arm here, doesn't matter. That's probably the worst case scenario, given that the outrage that came when we couldn't get anything for Dan Hamhuis a few years ago, and the fact that we're a rebuilding team. We've seen the fruits of the rebuild, so we want to get something for Alex Edler, whether it's a late first-round draft pick or a second-round draft pick or a pick in a player, whatever it may be. If we get an indication that he's not going to sign here, which I'll get to in a second. So that was 20%. The third option got 26%, which was we trade him and then he signs with another team. So that means at least we get assets back, and then we don't have them in our plans for July 1st. And then the fourth option, which I think a lot of fans would love to see, especially the Alex Edler fans, got exactly 1/4, 25%, is we trade him, but then he comes back here at the end of the season, basically at July 1st, after doing a quick playoff run. Then he doesn't have to move his family anywhere. So what's really, I'm going to get into all of these in a second, but what's really interesting, when you add the percentages together, 29-20, 26-25, 29-20, 49% of you think that he will not get traded, and 51% of you think that he will get traded. So that's almost as even as you can get, obviously, 49 to 51. So 49% think he will get traded. 49% of you think he will not get traded. 51% of you think that he will get traded. So let's talk about all four very quickly, although I kind of did that already. 49%, 29% said he does not get traded and he resigns here. Is that an option? Yes, it's an option. You look at next year, though, Quinn Hughes and Olli Juolevi are both left shot defensemen, and we know that the Canucks have plans for both of them to make the big club. Ben Hutton is playing well, and there's Alex Edler, not in that order. So really, take away Michael Delzato, right? You're looking at those four guys for next season. Is Hughes, Juolevi, then there's Hutton, and then there's Alex Edler. A lot of things can happen, obviously not with Hughes and Juolevi, the two of their last 3 first-round draft picks. So those two guys, I think, are locks to make the team. So it depends on what happens with Alex Edler and Ben Hutton. Do you showcase Ben Hutton and try and move him at the deadline for a pick? And a player, whatever it may be? Do you showcase Alex Edler and try and move him? Do you keep Alex Edler, which is the point of this first one, no trade, and then re-sign him? And if you re-sign him, then you're looking at Edler, Juolevi, and Hughes, and then Hutton would be the odd man out. But we've seen that the Canucks, obviously, you just look at this year, they've already had Tanev and Edler out, so you will need more than 6 defensemen. So that's the first option, is no trade, and then he re-signs here. And from all indications from his agent, that's what they want to happen. He wants to stay here, but he wants the Canucks to make the first move, which makes sense. But maybe the Canucks don't want to talk contract until later in the season, just like with Edler, just like with Besser, whatever it may be. So that's option number one. Option number two, 20%, I kind of hinted is the worst one. That's the one where they don't trade him, they lose him for nothing. I've already talked about that, and that got the least of the 4 votes, but that's probably the worst option for obvious reasons that I've discussed. The third option, 26%, would be that we trade him and then re-sign somewhere else, and that would be if the Canucks see that they don't have a future for him here. They're okay with maybe keeping Tanev, and they're okay with the left side being Hughes, Juolevi, and Ben Hutton or someone else. And that would probably be the worst option from the second worst option for anyone who likes Alex Edler. So I won't say too much about that, and because I kind of don't see that happening. But we'll see. And then the 25% for the last one would be the best case scenario. If you're an Edler fan, would be trade him, get some prospects or picks, something, and then he signs here in July 1. But his agent said that basically that's the trickiest one, because there's the agent's words, there's no guarantee that the Canucks will bring him back. And it's very rare, like I think we've seen it once or twice, but it's very rare that we see this, where a franchise player, a player that's been heart and soul of this team for many years, he played regular minutes back in 2011. Him and Tanev are the only guys still from that 2011 team that are left, but to be basically our number one D-man for the past decade, and then to basically trade him for assets, which is a good thing, but then it's always a risk. Is it true that he will come back? Will he keep his word and come back? Will the Canucks keep their word and try and sign him? What type of hometown discount are you expecting from Alex Edler, if any? So that's the tricky part. And with these contracts, with the no trade especially, I think what's challenging is is it fair to ask him to waive his no-trade clause? Because that was something that he negotiated, him and his agent. That was something that he likely took a pay cut. I don't know how big of a pay cut, but he likely took some sort of pay cut to get that into his contract. The Canucks knew what they were doing at the time, saving that money, that salary cap. So is it fair to ask someone like Alex Edler, the heart and soul of our defense for the past decade, is it fair to ask him to waive his no-trade? Tough to say. Every player is different. Maybe he comes to the Canucks and says, yeah, trade me. I want to go try and win a cup this season with a contender. And yes, I will come back for X amount of dollars next season, whether it's 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. I don't know. We can talk about money another time. And that would be, the best case scenario, obviously, that the Canucks get picks and then Alex Edler comes back. It's the best case scenario if you're an Alex Edler fan, of course. And 25% of you said that. So all to say, there's a lot that can happen here, whether he gets traded or not. Does he waive his no-trade or not? Do the Canucks even ask him to waive his no-trade clause? Because I get Jim Benning seems to be an Equilini, especially, but Benning especially seems to be a man of integrity from a standpoint of he may not even ask Alex, or he might kind of float it by Edler. Would you consider, and if Edler says no, or if he says is adamant about it, I don't think Benning's the type of guy who will push it. So there's a lot of ways this can go. Does he get traded or not? Does he sign here or not? That was the point of my whole poll question of those 4 options. So I asked you, Canucks fans, whether you answered that poll question on Twitter or not, what do you think is going to happen with Alex Edler? Both things. What do you think is going to happen, and what do you want to happen when it comes to trading him or not, and re-signing him or not? Leave a comment below. I love to read, react, and reply. The other thing, reminder that after tonight's game, the conclusion of Vancouver Canucks, Minnesota Wild, I'll be popping back here onto YouTube to do another 30 to 45 minute post-game live stream. Looking forward to spending some time with you, catching up a bit. We can talk about the game, talk about the road trip overall, talk about the Canucks at the quarter pole of the season. We can talk about Alex Edler, Elias Pettersson, I'm sure, Brock Besser, Jake Vertanen, Bo Horvat, whoever you want to talk about, we can do that tonight. So make sure you join me on YouTube at the conclusion of the Canucks game. Okay, that was a little confusing as I try to go through those 4 scenarios, but that's what happens when I don't do any editing, when I don't put any graphics, when I just do these Canucks takes all in one take. But tell me, what do you want, what do you predict, and what do you want for Alex Edler when it comes to trading him or not trading him, and signing him or not re-signing him? I'd love to read your comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to. Like this video if you'd like to. Have a great day. Enjoy the game. God bless. And go Canucks go.